Welcome back, listeners, to another deep dive into, well, some pretty intense stuff. Today, we're cracking open, metaphorically, of course, the Grand Grimoire with the Great Clavicle of Solomon.
It's a book with a serious rep. Rare, sought after, considered the real deal by, well, some. It even claims to be the true great work, at least according to certain rabbis.
But, like, with that kind of fame, there are always some issues. I mean, it wouldn't be a truly powerful grimoire without a bunch of fakes floating around, would it?
Right. I mean, if a book says it can unlock, like, serious secrets and maybe even grant you some crazy power, well, people are going to be all over it. And trying to, cash in on that. And the Grand Grimoire definitely, leans into that whole I'm super powerful thing.
Yeah, it claims a direct lineage to, wait for it, King Solomon. The biblical guy known for being wise, rich, and maybe most importantly for us today, a total master of spirits.
Oh, yeah, Solomon. His name still carries weight, even today. And this grimoire we're talking about, it paints him as this, like, relentless seeker of the universe's secrets.
Yeah, it says he was after obscure and unexpected secrets, no less.
Right. And it claims he actually managed to crack the code and get into the spiritual world.
And his secret weapon, this thing called the clavicle. It's presented as, like, the key to his control over spirits.
It is interesting, right? This idea that one object could grant that much authority. It's actually a common idea in magic, like a special artifact that channels power.
So it's not just a tool, then?
No, the clavicle here, it's more like intrinsically linked to Solomon's knowledge and his power to command these beings.
It makes you wonder, what does it really symbolize? Like, was it supposed to represent some kind of understanding or maybe a special connection to the divine?
Totally.
So the text says Solomon used these, like, thundering words to bend these rebel spirits to his will. So it's not just about having the clavicle, but also knowing the right words, the incantations. It's like they're crucial.
Right. And where did those powerful words come from?
Well, according to the Grand Grimoire, get this, from celestial beings, like straight from a higher power.
Which would make them pretty effective, I guess.
Yeah, it ups the ante for sure. It's not just earthly knowledge. It's like divinely given power over spirits.
It taps into this ancient idea of divine revelation. Like,
Yeah.
that's the source of all true knowledge and power,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, so that brings us to another fascinating piece of this puzzle. Early on, they introduced this fulminating rod, or sometimes it's called the conjurer's rod. And this isn't just some random stick, right?
No, definitely not just any old twig.
This thing, this rod, it's supposedly the same one an angel used to kick Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden.
Talk about a powerful backstory, right?
Mm-hmm.
It links this tool to, like, the fundamental stories of creation and, well, being kicked out of paradise.
Yeah, expulsion. So what's the point of making that connection?
Well, I think it's about implying that there's this huge divine power flowing through it. By connecting it to the Garden of Eden and even defeating rebel angels, it's giving the rod this sense of, like, both creation and destruction. It becomes a tool to enforce divine will.
And it gets even wilder. The same rod, according to the text, can control the weather. It can make clouds, get rid of hurricanes, and even steer them around the globe.
That's a pretty big step up, right?
Right. We go from controlling individual spirits to, like, messing with the elements. Huge jump in scale.
So if you believed in this system, where would you even start with trying to use something that powerful?
Well, Chapter 2 starts off with a pretty blunt warning. It calls out anyone who dares to even try this stuff. Calls them, let me see, weak men and mortals, and says they should tremble at your temerity. That's if they think they can just jump into this profound science without being super careful.
Sets the tone, right?
Yeah, it's like the book itself is saying, hey, if you're not serious, get out of here.
Yeah, you're going to get hurt. Don't even try it.
Exactly. It really stresses that you absolutely must be steadfast, constant, and most careful if you're going to follow these instructions. And any slip up, well, you risk disadvantage, confusion, and total loss. No pressure.
Great. So no room for error. What do you think all this focus on precision tells us?
I think it's saying that these rituals work according to very specific rules, like laws of magic or something. So any little change could mess it up or even bring bad stuff your way.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that. It
Yeah.
definitely adds to the whole, like, weightiness of the whole thing.
Yeah.
This isn't child's play, right?
Okay, so step one on this powerful but kind of scary journey is 15 days of no contact with the opposite sex. Gotta avoid impurity. That's a pretty big ask right off the bat.
It's a commitment, for sure. Why do you think they put so much emphasis on that?
Well, abstinence is common in a lot of spiritual and magical traditions. Like,
Wow.
it's a way to purify yourself, save your energy, and really focus on the task at hand.
Right, like a cleanse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this context, it could be about, disconnecting from earthly desires and really dedicating yourself to this intense task.
Makes sense. Clear your mind, focus your energy.
And it's not just who you're avoiding. There are also these strict rules about what you eat. 2 meals a day at very specific times, either midday and midnight or 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and each meal has to be accompanied by a specific prayer.
Oh, yeah. To whom?
To some pretty big names: Adonai, head of all spirits; Elohim; and Jehovah, major players in Judeo-Christian theology.
So why bring them into this? We're talking about commanding spirits, not, worshiping God.
It shows how, like, grimoires mix things up. They pull from different traditions. Invoking these names, it could be a way to borrow some of their power and authority, maybe as a way to, like, assert control over these other entities.
Or maybe as a way to protect yourself.
Yeah, that too. It's a fascinating mix of established religion and, well, magic.
For sure.
And then it gets even stricter. You got to eat without taking your clothes off, sleep as little as possible, and just constantly focus on what you're doing. And you have to have absolute faith in the infinite good of the great Adonai. It's like the spiritual boot camp.
Yeah, it's intense. It's not just about the ritual actions. It's about changing your whole mental and physical state. It's like getting yourself in sync with these spiritual forces.
Yeah, you're preparing yourself. Then there's this strange instruction to go get a bloodstone called emetil from a druggist, no less.
A druggist? Why a druggist?
Yeah, I know, right? And this isn't just a pretty rock. It's supposed to be carried with you at all times to protect you from fear and from the spirit trying to, like, talk you out of this whole thing.
Makes sense. It sounds pretty intense. You might need a little something to hold on to.
Exactly, like a tangible reminder to stay strong. And bloodstones have a history of being associated with courage, vitality, and protection, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They were often used in magic to ward off bad energy and help people stay focused.
Right. And the fact they tell you to get it from a druggist, maybe that's about connecting the material world with these more otherworldly goals. It's both a physical object and a source of inner strength.
A reminder of what you're aiming for.
Yeah. And you can't just do these rituals anywhere. It has to be a quiet, solitary place, far away from any distractions. Which, I mean, that makes sense. You wouldn't want your phone ringing in the middle of a summoning.
Well, and there's this whole idea of creating a sacred space, right?
Right. Free from the everyday world so you can connect with the spiritual realm.
Yeah, and it lets you fully focus on the ritual without anything messing it up. Really enhances your intention.
Okay, now on day 3 of this intense prep work, things get a little, well, weird. They tell you to get a young virgin kid, like a baby goat, and you have to decorate it with a garland of vervain tied with a green ribbon.
Okay. This isn't for, like, a farm visit, is it?
Nope. This is for the first offering to, you guessed it, Adonai, Elohim, Ariel, and Jehovah.
Oh, wow. So we're talking about animal sacrifice.
Yep. A pretty big element here.
So how do we understand that, in this context?
Well, animal sacrifice has been a part of religious and magical practices for a long time in different cultures.
Right, but what's the point here?
Here, it's likely an offering, a way to, appease these spirits or maybe gain their favor.
And the young virgin kid?
That probably symbolizes purity and offering a life force as a way to, like, gain their acceptance. And they keep bringing in those divine names. Again, it's that blending of different traditions.
Right, mixing and matching.
Yeah. So next, you skin the kid and burn the remains to ashes. Then you toss those ashes towards the rising sun while saying certain words, invoking those same divine names, of course. It's a pretty detailed and kind of disturbing process.
Yeah, it is. But each step seems to have meaning.
Exactly. It's about following the exact procedure to get the spiritual outcome you want, from the sacrifice to the burning to scattering the ashes. It all symbolizes something, like transformation maybe, or sending energy up to the heavens.
So every detail matters.
Every detail. And don't forget the skin.
The skin, what do they do with that?
They keep it. They're going to use it to make the grand Kabbalistic circle. That's a key part of the main ritual.
Oh, I see. Okay, so after 15 days of, mental focus, weird diets, and sacrificing baby goats, we're finally ready for the main event.
Right, the eve of the great undertaking. So what's next? What do we need to get this magical show on the road?
Well, now it's time to make the fulminating wand. The grimoire gives you very specific instructions for finding a wild hazel branch.
Not just any hazel branch, right?
Right. It has to be one that hasn't grown fruit yet. And it has to have this forked branch at the top and be exactly 19.5 inches long.
So precise. Why all the specifics?
It's like they believe the power of this wand depends on getting all those details right. It's not just any stick. It has to be perfect.
It has to be the chosen one. Then what?
Then you can only look at it until sunrise the next day.
Seriously.
Yeah, the book says so.
Yeah.
It's about focusing your intention on this branch,
Yeah.
getting yourself ready for the cutting.
And that cutting happens at sunrise using the same bloody blade from the sacrifice. And of course, there's another invocation, this time asking Adonai, Elohim, Ariel, and Jehovah to give the rod some serious oomph.
What kind of oomph?
Like the strength of Jacob, the virtue of Moses, the power of Joshua and Samson, the rage of Emmanuel, and the thunderbolt of Zeriat-Namek.
Wow, that's a lot to pack into one stick.
Right. It's like they're going for the ultimate magical pedigree.
Yeah, it's another example of how they blend biblical figures with these more obscure names and ideas. It's about pulling power from different sources.
So once the branch is cut, you take it inside. Time for more prep work.
More. What else do they do to it?
A smith has to cap the two ends of the forked part with the same steel blade from the sacrifice. So like we're combining natural wood with metal and tying it all back to the sacrifice kid.
Interesting. Why bring a smith into it?
Well, a smith works with fire and transforms raw materials, right? So maybe it's about shaping the wand's magical energy.
Like forging a magical tool.
Yeah, and by using the same blade, it's like they're transferring power from the sacrifice into the wand. Then, get this, they magnetize those steel points using a lodestone heated in fire.
Well, they're not messing around.
And, surprise, there's another invocation, asking for the power to join in separate things by the power of those divine names and the incorruptibility of water and fire. It's like alchemy or something.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to control fundamental forces, magnetism, fire, water. It's all about mastering the elements, a classic goal in magic.
Totally. Now for the shopping list of ingredients for the big night. And it's a doozy. Ready. The rod, the kid skin, the bloodstone, and 2 garlands of vervain, blessed candle holders with virgin wax, the lodestone, flint's spirit of water, blessed incense mixed with camphora, and this is where it gets creepy, 4 nails from a child's coffin.
Okay, coffin nails. That's a bit dark.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense ingredient.
What's the deal with those?
Well, using things associated with death is a way to, connect with the spirit world.
So those nails, having been so close to death and burial, they're like a bridge to the other side.
Exactly. And it shows they're willing to get into some pretty dark stuff to get what they want. So we've got all our ingredients, our tools are prepped, and now it's time to build the Great Kabbalistic Circle.
So how do they actually make it?
They start with the kid's skin from the sacrifice.
Oh, right. They saved that.
They lay it out and nail it to the ground with those coffin nails. That defines the boundaries of the circle.
Okay, so we're talking about a circle made of a sacrificed goat skin pinned down with coffin nails. This is some serious business.
No kidding. Then, using the bloodstone, they draw a triangle inside the circle. And they start drawing it from the direction of the rising sun.
So the direction matters.
It seems so. And they also write 4 letters outside the circle, still using the bloodstone. But the text doesn't say what those letters are. It's like secret knowledge.
So it's a circle, a triangle, and some secret code.
Pretty much. And for extra protection, they put the holy name JHS, short for Jesus, between 2 crosses inside the circle. Again, with the Christian imagery mixed with magic.
Yeah, like a safeguard.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a way to get divine approval for what they're about to do.
Maybe both.
Yeah.
Now, the karsist, that's the person doing the ritual, and anyone helping them, go into the triangle. They're told not to freak out if they hear any noises.
Grave of them.
Right. Then they put those candle holders with the vervain on each side of the triangle and light them. So now we've got a pretty intense atmosphere, with the candles, the smells, the symbols.
It's like they're creating a portal to another world.
Exactly. Now they take a new container and fill it with willow wood ashes, which they must have burned earlier, mix it with spirit of water, incense, and camphora, and set it on fire. Then they offer that up to, yep, you guessed it, Adonai, Elohim, Ariel, and Jehovah. They're really going all out with the sensory experience.
So a lot of smells, a lot of fire.
Yeah, it's a whole production. And here's another rule. No impure metals on the karsist. Only gold or silver coins allowed, and they have to be wrapped in paper. Those are for throwing at the spirit later.
Like an offering.
Yeah, like a payment or bribe. And only the karsist can talk.
Why only them?
It emphasizes their role as the leader. the one in control of the whole thing.
So they're the only one allowed to talk to the spirit.
Exactly. Okay, so next comes the first oration and the second oration. Both are addressed to the great living God. The first one is all about praising and submitting to God, and the second one is where they get to the point. They ask for the power to get rich using the powerful and terrible words of the clavicle.
Okay, so finally we know what this is all about. Money.
Money makes the magical world go round, I guess, but they're trying to, like, frame it within a religious context.
Right, like getting God's permission to get rich.
Exactly. They keep the flames going, add some more incense, specifically for Adonai, Elohim, Ariel, and Jehovah, and then it's time for the main attraction,
Yeah.
the first invocation to Emperor Lucifer.
Here we go.
They straight up command Lucifer to show up and speak clearly. And if he doesn't, well, they threaten to force him using those powerful names we keep hearing and by calling on even higher ranking spirits. It's not a polite request, it's a demand.
That's quite the power move.
Right. The second invocation ups the ante even more. They bring in Emmanuel and his blood and again order Lucifer to appear or send Astaroth instead. They even threaten to use the blasting rod, remember that crazy powerful stick, and add a bunch more powerful names to the list.
It's like they're really laying down the law.
Yeah, no messing around here. And then there's this ominous warning. If the spirit doesn't show up after 2 tries, the Karsus has to strike the rod in the fire and start reading from the clavicle. And get this, they're told to ignore any horrible screams they might hear.
Yikes. Sounds terrifying.
Definitely not for the faint of heart. So if even that doesn't work, they move on to the grand invocation of the Great Kabbalah. This one uses an even longer list of names, and they have to say it twice.
Okay, hold on. What's Kabbalah doing in all of this?
It's that Jewish mystical tradition that explores the hidden meanings of the universe. They're basically pulling in another source of power, maybe to make the invocation extra strong. So finally, after all those demands and threats, the spirit shows up. It's Lucifuge Raphael.
So what does he say?
His first words are, "Here I am, what will you ask of me? Why do you torment my peace? Desist from striking me again with that terrible rod." So it seems like all that shouting and rod waving worked.
Well, at least according to the book, so the spirit is scared of the rod. That's interesting.
It's a pretty convincing detail. Then Solomon lays down the law. He tells the spirit to grant his request or else suffer eternal torment. There's no negotiation, it's pure power play.
It's not rough.
Lucifuge Raphael tries to strike a deal, saying he'll grant the wish, but only if the Karsist becomes his servant for 50 years. Classic Faustian bargain.
That's a hefty price to pay.
Yeah, instant wealth, but at a serious cost. Solomon's not having it, though. He threatens to whack the spirit with the rod again, using the power of Adonai. This back and forth goes on until Lucifuge Raphael finally gives in and agrees to a covenant.
And what does that say?
This covenant is pretty detailed. Lucifuge Raphael agrees to show up for 2 hours every night except on certain days, to sign the grimoire with his name, to appear whenever called using the book, the rod, and the circle, and to give the Karsist all the treasure he wants.
Wow. Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Well, there are some conditions.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be kept secret, some of the money has to go to charity, and they have to give the spirit a gold or silver coin every month. It's like a magical contract.
A monthly fee for unlimited wealth.
Right. And there's even a note saying that Lucifuge Raphael signed on the dotted line and Solomon accepted the deal. Then there's a whole separate invocation for conjuring Lucifer, using slightly different powerful names. And then we get the promise of the spirit, this time from Lucifer himself, spelled out in 7 articles.
7 articles. What do those say?
They describe Lucifer's power and how he'll make all his underlings obey whoever owns the Grand Grimoire.
So the book gives you power over demons.
That's the idea. Then they explain how to dismiss the spirit using the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, followed by instructions for the spirit to lead the Karsist to the treasure.
So it's not enough to make a deal, you gotta go get the goods.
Exactly. The Karsist grabs the blasting rod and the bloodstone, walks out of the circle through the door of mighty Adonai, their words, not mine, and follows the spirit.
Okay, so where's the treasure?
Well, first they run into a gnome guarding the entrance.
A gnome?
Yep, but the Karsist uses the forked rod to scare it off, like it's a supernatural security system or something.
Oh, pretty cool, actually.
And then they say the person who originally hid the treasure appears, but they can't get close to it.
Huh. So how does the Karsist actually claim the treasure?
They throw a piece of parchment with the clavicle's conjuration on it over the treasure pile, take a single coin as a down payment, and then back away with as much treasure as they can carry. And the book stresses they can't turn around no matter what they hear. Sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, like something might be chasing them. Smart move not to look back. So then what?
The Karsus gets back to the circle safe and sound, and then they read the entreating and returning of the spirit to Prince Lucifer, basically thanking him for his help, but also reminding him not to slack off, or else. They even mention the blasting rod again, just in case. It's like, thanks, but don't mess this up.
So they're still in charge.
Right. It's a polite but firm dismissal. And finally, they say a prayer of thanks to God for the successful operation and promise to give some of the money to the poor. I guess it's a way to, balance out the greed with some good deeds.
Right, trying to stay on God's good side after all that demon summoning.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the Grand Grimoire. Intense stuff.
It's pretty wild, right? All those details, the beliefs, it's like a peek into a whole different way of seeing the world.
It's fascinating how they combine spiritual stuff with all these very specific instructions for physical actions. Like, they really believe that what you do with objects and what words you say can directly affect the spirit world.
And the whole thing requires so much self-control, discipline, focus, and following the rules exactly. It's like the power of belief taken to the extreme.
Definitely. And it's important to remember the historical context of these grimoires. They're part of a long tradition of people trying to unlock hidden knowledge and gain control over, forces beyond our understanding.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, what's the psychological effect of going through something like this? Even if no spirits show up and there's no treasure, just the act of doing those rituals, it must change you somehow.
That's a good point. So thinking about all that, all the details, the mental preparation, the fact that books like this still exist and fascinate people, what does that tell us about human nature? What are we really searching for when we delve into these forbidden areas of knowledge?
Right. What secrets are we after today, and how far are we willing to go to find them?
That's something to ponder. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Grand Grimoire. Until next time, keep exploring, but maybe skip the kid sacrifices.